Good day, everybody. This is John Scarborough. I wanted to talk a little bit today about a question that I've had, not on the channel, but I've had it in the past, and that is cords obsolete? Or do we even need grinders? Do we need saws? Is there a reason to buy anything without a cord? And I've had the question asked a couple times from other people that are thinking about getting into welding. They know that I've been into welding before, and I still, all of my grinders are still, they're still they still got cords on them. I still have cords on all of my grinders, but obviously I like battery pack tools, and so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because I'm actually thinking about getting me a battery powered grinder. I wanted to talk about the batteries and how they're just how awesome they are, how they make our lives so much easier in a lot of different ways, but especially now that I've gotten into farming. I do most of what I do now for a living is in the farming industry, and so a lot of what I do is off grid, away from my shop or away from my stuff. Now I still do a lot of stuff at my shop, and I have a welding trailer. I had it all on a truck at one point, but now I have a trailer and it's got a generator on it, so it's not like I can't get that generator to anything that I do. But the reality is these tools right here are just outstanding in how awesome they are. And I'm picking this one up because it was my very first battery pack tool. It was this one right here, and then I think I actually got those in a set. Anyway, so I got this one obviously because I'm working on a roof, and I mean, you just about can't do without one of these working on a roof. I mean, obviously you can, but it makes a big difference when you're putting in all those fasteners and stuff. I was doing a little bit of, got into some building some metal buildings there for a while. And you can tell I've converted this one. It used to be 18 volt like this one right here. But I put the little adapter on there, and you can take it off. You can still use a good 18 volt battery if you have it. But I actually bought two of these converters, and I leave one of them on this at all times because this is my most used tool even to this day. You just use it everywhere. So I leave that one on there and have it permanently converted. And then I've got another one was actually given to me as a gift. And I use that just kind of interchange throughout all of my other 18 volt tools. Because most of these batteries are starting to get pretty wore out. So we're going to kind of go over that and compare some of that. Like, what are the pluses and minuses of this? Like, this is a saw right here that I still use, but I don't really reach for it anymore. Even when I'm in the shop, I reach for that one. It may not even have the same power. To me, I can't tell, honestly. If it is less power, then I sure can't tell. But I reach for that one, and I'm not talking about brands here. Let's just forget about brands on all of this. The biggest reason for using DeWalt is simply because that was the first one I ever got. I found a great deal on a package deal. I got them back when they were 18 volts. And that was what I went with. If anybody knows anything about battery pack tools, once you commit to a brand, then all your batteries go with that brand. So from then on, you've kind of got to invest in that same brand. Otherwise, you kind of lose your investment. Now, when I went to 20 volt, I could have changed over, but they actually had adapters and all like that. Long story short, there is no specific reason for this. I see other brands that I really like. And they're not paying me anything to say that I like them. I do like these, but I also like some of the other ones. And then with the skill saw, I found this on sale. I think it still says it right there. If I can see it, can't get it to, you can barely see it. There it is, $29. Bought it at a pawn shop. And anybody knows that if they know anything about that saw, they know it's worth that, and it's still a great saw. I got a couple of these saws with the cords. I don't ever reach for that anymore. I just don't. I always end up reaching for this. So then, why do I still own corded tools? Okay, why would I still buy corded tools? It's not that why not own them. That's a pretty easy question to answer. You own them because it's always a great backup. Once you've already bought it, it's a great backup. It'll always be there, and it'll probably end up outlasting these other ones. Okay, but why would I still buy corded tools versus battery pack tools? okay? Let's use a grinder, for instance, because that's one of the hardest working tools that I use is a grinder. I use a handheld grinder for all sorts of things. I like to play around with making knives and stuff, and I have belt sander, but I'm used to this, so I use these a lot. So I am thinking about buying a battery pack grinder, but the battery pack grinder is like a 4-inch grinder. I don't even know that they make one this size just yet. So if they did, then the battery pack grinder of this size would end up being heavier than this. So that's part of it is if you did have a battery that could run this, you would actually have more weight. And it's actually kind of the same when you get into more powerful saws. So like you have the worm drive gear that you use for these, and those are just way more powerful saws, way more powerful. You're going to get more power than these. So if you have that worm drive saw, it's kind of a question of, do I want to have that much weight? You know, do I want to sacrifice that? Do I want to switch out the batteries? Or do I want to deal with the cord? Well, for me, when it comes to the grinder, I still like the cord. But that's not the only reason why. Part of the reason for liking the corded grinders is honestly cost. When it comes to this, I mean, if I'm looking at a grinder, their most powerful grinder, they have one right now that is let's think, it's $130, somewhere in there. And this is just what I'm looking at in my area, okay? It was approximately $130. And then they had another grinder that was a little bit more powerful, and it was $200, okay? This grinder right here, I think, cost $150, $160, something like that. And they last for a while at that price, okay? And I can really beat them up and put a lot through them. And I've had all sorts of different other brands as well in grinders. Usually when it comes to grinders, I just wait until I find a good deal on a grinder, and that's the one I buy. There's all sorts of different brands that I've bought and liked, most of them. So why do I like these? Because of cost. Because if I spend, let's say I spend the $200 and get the more powerful grinder, I'm already spending a little bit more than this. But it's not so much that, it's the fact that the batteries, now if you're going to get a good battery, and usually the 5 amp hour ones are the ones that I'm going to get if they're going to last me very long. But getting any less than that, I'm only going to use it for throw it in my bag in case I need it or something like that battery. But usually the 5 amp hour, for me, that's going to be what's going to run long enough for me before I got to change it out. Well, you're looking at $100. Usually, a lot of times for me, for what I see, I've been seeing them for about $100. And you can get some deals here and there. So now you're looking at a $300 grinder versus a $150 grinder. Okay? You got a $300 grinder with your battery that goes on it versus $150. So that's a big part of it for me. Are cords obsolete? Not when it comes to this kind of stuff. The battery's not going to last forever. I had the 18-volt system, like I said at first. The batteries end up going bad eventually. I've had these batteries for 10 years, and they're just about gone. I can still charge them, but man, they don't last very long at all, you know, and they just run right down. And so really, I would say when they stopped being really good batteries, and a lot of them did just drop off, was probably more like 6 years, and I wasn't even using them hard. I use them harder now that I've gotten more into farming and stuff, and building off grid and stuff. Before, I could, even when I was still getting into farming, I could get around with my welding trailer a lot in some of these places. But I've actually gotten some lease properties and stuff now that I can't even hardly get back there with anything other than a four-wheeler. So these things really come in handy for that, and I won't trade them off. I'm going to have some battery pack tools. But I don't think that these are obsolete, not the power tools. For this might be obsolete. I might not would buy this. Again, this right here does all I need as far as a sidewinder, okay? Sidewinder saw, okay? But I would still consider buying the corded saw in the worm drive gear, the worm gears. I would consider buying that with those just simply because I know what they are, and I know that they would, the lastability, the power. It's not that you can't get the power. There's a couple videos out there people have done where they're showing that they're starting to pull it off. You can get the power now with the battery packed. But a lot of it comes down to lastability as well, and still cost. Because like I said before, you're spending $300 for the battery and the grinder, but how much are you really spending in the amount of time that this battery is going to last you? Okay. For the grinder, I would probably end up buying 2 batteries in that time. So if you look at it like that, that's $400 in that amount of time. Is it worth it? It's hard to know. But if it's in my profession, something I'm doing a lot of, like I used to do with the grinders, I would still probably lean towards these. For some people, depending on what they're doing, they might not. Like when I was using this when I was building some metal buildings for people professionally, I couldn't live without the battery pack, and it was worth it to me, the extra money. But even now that I'm not using this professionally, and now I use it mostly for myself and some professionally, and I have the option of using a battery with the grinder, I still prefer these because of the cost and the lastability. Everything just lasts longer with that. So no, my answer to that is I do not think they're obsolete. And these are just my opinions. These are what works for me. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, because for some people, it's well worth the money to spend the money and have all battery pack tools 100%. And I think that that's right too. If that's what works for you, I think that's right. But just wanted to throw my opinion out there and what works for me, so in case it might help a few people. I know sometimes if I get on YouTube and I watch other people's opinions on a subject they know a little bit about, it can help me to make my decision based on their decision, simply because they're throwing some pointers out there that I haven't yet thought of. And that's really all I'm getting down to. Is there's a lot of tools, like these style tools, even hand drills. I'm not going to buy a hand drill with that's not a battery pack. There's no reason for me specifically. And for this, like I think I've said this in another video, I'm not sure if I have or not. To me, this saw right here is one of the most handy saws that they ever made. And that's back when they had a cord on it. When they made it cordless, it really truly is a wonderfully handy tool. And that's a video for another day. But it really is an awesome, all-around great tool, especially with that battery. So I would not buy that with a cord. There's no reason for me to buy that with a cord. But the grinder, that's one that I'll continue to buy one with a cord. Even if I buy a cordless, I would still consider buying the cheaper cordless just to have around for those occasional places that I don't want to drag that cord around. But lastability, still power, and money, there are still some tools that I'm not going to throw away the cord yet. I'm not going to say I never will. There's a lot of tools I thought back when they first come out with batteries, man, I thought that's a bunch of junk. You ain't never going to see me getting into all that. But here I am converting more and more over to batteries. So they keep it up. They keep going, all these different companies, and making more and more good battery pack tools. You never know. My opinion may change. But for now, I don't think that the cord is obsolete yet. I actually wouldn't mind if they did make it obsolete. Maybe one day they'll make it more cost effective, a little bit not quite as expensive for some of the stuff. And when they do, they keep pulling the power off and everything. You never know, it might be. But for now, that's in my opinion. That's kind of my thoughts behind it. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Maybe it will help somebody. If it didn't, then I'm sorry that you dragged it out, but I do appreciate you watching this long. So, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And another thing is if y'all really want to keep up with my channel and know when videos come out, there is a bell. You can click on that bell, and it's a bell icon. If you click on it, anyway, it will notify you and let you know whether or not I post videos, or when I post videos. That way you'll kind of know, and you can kind of keep up with all of that. So anyway, guys, like and subscribe, like I said.